All right, so today we're gonna go over pulling. Since you've already gotten through centering and opening the well, the next step is gonna be pulling and getting the height for a cylinder, which usually takes the most practice. So you're gonna have to be doing this quite a bit of times until you figure out like the correct pressures and also like the positioning. So here's my centered. I already opened a piece of clay. I'll show you guys a couple ways for pulling. The first one, usually for beginners, like using the sponge. So as far as positions, my left hand's gonna be on the inside of the clay, on the right side, and it's positioned around, if we're looking at this like a clock, 12 o'clock being at the top over here, 3 o'clock here. I position my hand around 4 o'clock, and I'm gonna wet the clay, and then from the outside, same thing. I hold the sponge between my fingers, and now what I'm gonna do is pinch the clay, starting from the very bottom. I'll pinch the clay between my fingers, and then I'm slowly just gonna go straight up. Also, the key to pulling is going up slowly, because you want the speed of the wheel like to make a full revolution around your fingers, like a full circle, before you kind of move up. So that was one pull. The other thing with pulling is you want to slow it down. For centering and opening the well, you could go fast, but now for pulling you need to slow it down. So that was one pull. Now before I do the next pull, I like to drag my fingernail on the edge to create the edge of my pot, and then with the sponge I'll make like this indentation at the bottom, so I'm able to grab that clay to pull it. So I'm gonna do the second pull again with the sponge, inside hand, pinch the clay between fingers from the very bottom, and then just slowly move straight up. Again, the key is to go slow as you pull up. If you are moving up too fast, you're gonna get a spiral on your cylinder. So that was two pulls. Let's do one more. And I did that edge at the inside. Now I'm gonna do that indent at the outside. Add water on the outside, on the inside. Pinch the clay starting from the very bottom. And can you see that little bump? It started at the bottom and now it's moving up. That's all that thick clay moving up, giving your cylinder height, and also making the cylinder thin. So there you go. That's pulling with the sponge. Now I'm just gonna make this nice and cylindrical. That was 3 pulls. I'll just probably do one more pull and try to keep things more cylindrical now. Again, one thing else as far as positioning, like my right hand, most of the time it's like sitting on my thigh. That's for stability. My left hand, it is sort of like floating around, but I remain stable by having my right hand on my thigh. So that was pulling using a sponge. Now let's do it again, but this time I'll show you a different pulling method, and it's like my personally preferred way, which is using my knuckle. So here again I have my already opened up piece of clay. The way I pull is I use my knuckle like this, and same positioning, you know, everything's the same, but now I use my knuckle to, you know, mostly this part of my knuckle here to get underneath. Again, go up slowly. So this is what it looks like. Now my thumb is also resting on the pot, but it's just mostly there for support. It's not really doing anything. So that was one pull. Again, before I do the next one, I'll do that edge there, and I'll create this little indent at the bottom. Wet the clay, inside and outside. This is what it looks like. You know, so it's like my left hand is pushing against my knuckle here, and it's the clay's in between, you know, my fingers here, and then I'm just going straight up. So I'm gonna pinch the clay between my fingers, just slowly move straight up. My elbows are still sitting on my thighs for stability. Yeah, if you're not stable, if you're just kind of like floating around, then yeah, you're gonna get a wobbly pot. So here, could do one more pull. So again, wet the inside, wet the outside. Make sure things are slippery. And again, you have to play around with this, you know, to find out the correct pressure, because you want to make sure you actually are getting height out of your pulls. If you're pulling and you're not getting height, then that means you're not putting enough pressure. Sometimes you could actually put too much pressure and then you end up ripping apart the cylinder. So again, this is what it's looking like. There's my cylinder. That was about 3 pulls. So normally for the amount of clay you're using, maybe you wanna aim for 5 pulls at the most. If you're doing more than 5 and you're not getting height, then you're definitely not doing things correctly. So there's my cylinder. Now I'm gonna switch camera angles so you can see it more from the front, and then I'll cut one of these in half so you can see what the pulling looks like. Give me a sec. Alright, so here's a different view of the pulling. So again, here's my open cylinder. If you're pulling with the sponge, you're gonna put the sponge between your fingers. Again, positioning on the right side of, you know, the whole cylinder, and then it's around 4 o'clock. You want to keep your hands positioned at 4 o'clock the whole time as you're pulling. So pinch the clay between your fingers and just go up slowly. Go up all the way to the top. So that's if you're pulling with the sponge. If you want to try the knuckle method, first before pulling, I'll make that edge. When I do that edge on the inside, I'm also pushing out all the thick clay towards the outside so that I'm able to pull it. So remember, sometimes at the beginning you have really thick bottoms, so you want to push out all that extra clay. So again, if you're using the knuckle method, here's my knuckle. This is where I put the pressure. So starting from the very bottom, you see that little ring or bump. You can go up slowly. My right hand is sitting on my thighs for stability. And there's the second pull, you know, got more height. Now, what does this look like on the inside? I'm gonna cut this in half and so that you can see what it actually looks like when I'm doing the pulling. So here's the profile. Right, so I mentioned I like to go over with my fingernail to create that corner. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing out all that extra clay here. And you see how I already got like a little bump. And I'm pushing that clay out. From the inside, I'm also making that indent. And then from there, let's wet this. This is what it looks like. You know, my left hand's on the inside, my right hand's on the outside if I'm doing with my knuckle. I'm pinching the clay between my fingers, and then I'm just slowly moving up, and that's gonna make the walls thinner as I pinch and pull and going slowly straight up. So you guys see, like, this side already got higher and I was doing that pull. So again, this is what it looks like. You know, I'm pinching the clay between fingers, going straight up slowly, and that's gonna, you know, give me the height that I need. So again, you need to play around with the pressure. So you want to put enough pressure that you're actually moving the clay, but then also not too much pressure that you end up ripping off the clay. So this is kind of what you have to figure out. I don't really have a like specific amount of pressure. You know, I can say, oh, like 1 pound per square inch. I can't really say that. You have to you know, play around with the pressures until you actually figure it out. And once you notice that you're pulling and you know you're getting the height, then just keep that pressure in mind as you're doing your next pulls. But yeah, this is what you're trying to do. Again, you want the walls to be pretty even from the bottom to the top, and also a nice good floor, you know, not nice flat bottom that's also pretty even, and it's about a ½ inch thick. But anyways, there's your pulling. Let's just show you guys these other pieces that I pulled. I'll cut this one in half so you can see again what you're aiming for. So yeah, eventually you want height, but yeah, you want the wall thickness to be the same bottom to top. Also nice even thickness at the bottom. It could be a little thick, that's fine, but up to ½ an inch. Eventually we'll talk about trimming, so that's why you want to have like a thick bottom. But yeah, you want nice even thickness from the bottom to the top. Don't forget, you also want that little edge or corner on the inside, like between the floor and the wall. You don't want a bowl shape, because this shows you like the pot is not going to be bottom heavy. So this is what you're ultimately aiming to do. Once you're able to do this pretty consistently, like pretty often, then you would have at least you know, gotten better at throwing your cylinders. Yeah, because you want to be able to do this consistently over and over again. So keep practicing. You want to do this as much as possible, and you guys will get good at it. All right, go for it. Thank you guys.